right, thank you very much. Here we go. Of course, that is the question, and we'll start there. Of course, we've seen that that's just one case of many that is happening, and Senate has exercises oversight over matters counties. So is it doing so? It appears like we have so many cases coming up. So is Senate actually exercising the oversight over revenue allocation?
It must be understood that when Senate is operating, it does so within rules. The critical oversight role of the Senate is exercised through a committee which I happen to chair, called the County Public Accounts and Investment Committee. The rules are, for my committee to move in, the committee has to wait for an audit report from the Auditor General. Which brings us to challenge number one. Namely, the Auditor General, claiming a lack of resources, was not able to beat the constitutional deadlines that required that 6 months after the end of the first financial year, the Auditor General should have submitted to my committee audited accounts of all the 47 counties. He did not do that until 7 months late is when he submitted. So I was ready and willing to start work, but there were no audited accounts before us. So they came late, and we have started. We are now working on them in earnest. We've completed the accounts of Homa Bay, we've completed Kajiado, we've completed Turkana, and many others are ongoing. Shortly, Kenyans will start seeing us table those reports, and the debates will start. Is when people will be happy that Senate is actually delivering. The second challenge was that there was an interim report, interim accounts that were brought on time by the Auditor General concerning the first 9 months of devolution. Unfortunately, the governors went to court and blocked us through an injunction that they could not be summoned to the Senate. So it took the due process, including the determination by the High Court and subsequently an attempt to appeal, which again the governors lost. So now the governors are now clear that should they fail to come before us, they'll meet the consequences of defying a court summons. And those were the principal things that delayed us.
And you, like you said, you've been through a few of the counties, you've completed some counties. So
yes.
What is the fundamental problem that you are fishing out from these reports?
It's amazing. You can't even call it fundamental. Problems fly from all manner of directions. And we have decided not to wade into local politics, because Kenyans also should be aware, like what you have just seen on the clip this morning. Youth do not just happen into a county assembly. Those are local politics. So if my committee makes the mistake of wading into local politics, you lose focus. So we don't listen to that. I remember last week when we flew into Turkana to see the presence or absence of projects that are supposed to have been implemented. The meeting was turned into an almost chaotic thing. There was a shouting match between the governor and his potential opponents in 2017. And everywhere we went to inspect a project, we were being followed by truckloads of youth hired by either party. So these things are there are challenges, but we are focused. The thread that I'm starting to see going through is the breach of the procurement law. The governors are not procuring in accordance with the law. They just sit and dish out contracts to friends, political cronies and stuff like that, and you are talking about millions of shillings, hundreds of millions of shillings. Let me give you an example which I had last week. Last week we were looking at the accounts of Nyandarua, and in one instance, just one instance, one project of roads, the governor has breached, and it has resulted in quotes into the loss of 791 million shillings. Yesterday when I was looking at Nakuru, for example, the governor has done all manner of things, and at the end of the day, the auditor asks him, okay, fine, you received 8.2 billion shillings from Nairobi. How much of this did you convert into development? 10% out of 8.2, which translates to 800 million only out of 8.2 billion is the only one that the governor was able to convince the Auditor General that he had done the development.
So what will be
yes.
What will be done, like once you table the report? What is the end game? Will we see what happens to the governors and those who are found culpable?
Yes, we are making a very big effort. In some of the instances, the governors are to blame for failure to be in control. But then you find under that failure, you are able to identify an officer who was able to walk away with money. Let me give you an example. The governor of Kajiado strikes us as being a very straight person. However, underneath, all is not well. An example was, for example, where 565 million shillings was withdrawn from the emergency fund to go and address the problem of a borehole. But out of the 565,000, out of the 565,000, only 120,000 went into fixing a borehole at Dikirir. However, the balance was shared as sitting allowance. Now, the law does not allow emergency funds to pay for sitting allowances. So we were able to identify the officers who paid themselves, and we quickly punished them, i.e. recover the money. Failing which, criminal prosecution will be taken against you. But now you are stuck with the governor because the governor did not partake of that money. However, procedurally he failed. He should have been in charge to ensure that during the county executive committee meetings, he is aware of what is going on. People cannot just be sitting in an office in his complex sharing those hundreds of thousands, and he says, I don't know. He is the CEO. So with those kind of cases, we will apportion blame correctly. But the bottom line is that prosecutions will be there. Further investigations by Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, CID, will be there. And in some cases, we will be left with no option as Senate but to find that a certain governor is not fit to hold public office.
So how soon is there a timeline that maybe Kenyans can expect, like we'll do it by the next 2 months, we'll be seeing something, or the next, or even tomorrow?
Yes, as I said, we have to wait for the reports of the auditor. Like now, the recent things that people are reading are not part of the audited accounts that we are looking at as of now. So even as we start tabling reports from next week we are tabling Homa Bay, the week after will be Turkana, and so on. So it will start running throughout. Even as we do that, Kenyans will now be being told the problems and theft that took place in the first financial year, i.e. 2013, 2014. But these juicy ones of the current 2015, 2016, people have to be patient a little bit. My only appeal at this stage is for the national government to fund the office of the Auditor General. If we expect to contain corruption, then the Auditor General must be empowered. And the Auditor General's office, its empowerment is the easiest. It's not like in the military where you're supposed to procure expensive equipment. In the case of the Auditor General, all he needs is human resource. And we don't have a shortage. Our universities are now churning out a lot of young graduates, properly trained in accounts, who can be able to support the office of the auditor. We should increase the budget. Unfortunately for Kenyans, our beloved members of parliament in the National Assembly are also on a warpath to try and clip the wings of the auditor. There's an amendment bill that has been very contentious between the Senate and the National Assembly, because they want to cut the wings of the Auditor General. I hope this will not happen, because you kill the Auditor General, you kill accountability, you kill oversight.
And the final question, just out of what you said about the Senate and the National Assembly, do you think more power needs to come to the Senate in terms of tackling this matter, or is it sufficient and it's just a matter of following it up once you table the reports and make
as you heard me from the beginning, I have not in my challenges anywhere mentioned that the National Assembly is a problem. So even the Constitution in its current state, if it is respected, Senate is able to do the things that I am speaking to. Where it becomes a challenge now is now when we are ambushed, like the way the executive wanted to ambush Parliament by going through the National Assembly, which, with all due respect to viewers, in my view, the National Assembly has lost its independence to the executive, to the extent that, in view of the many years I've been in Parliament, I'm persuaded to believe that the National Assembly, in its current form, is nothing but just a department within the office of the President. So the executive sneaks through that window and wants now to make the office of the auditor weak. There is no executive anywhere in the world, including the United States of America, that likes and welcomes oversight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much. We've been speaking to Kakamega Senator Bonny Khalwale, who is also the chair of the Senate Committee of Public Accounts, on his views about the Senate, the counties and how they are spending their money and the oversight. And of course, if you just joined us, from next week, he says, we're about to see some of the reports that they've completed, tabled in the House, and of course we'll be covering those stories for you, and probably welcome him again when such happens. So thank you so much for making time for us.
Welcome, sir.